So, welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews where we discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes, and their challenges, and what's really driving them forwards. And this afternoon, I'm delighted to have with us Matt Wheeler, who's the co-founder and digital director at madeby.studio. So, firstly, Matt, thanks so much for your time today. And if you'd like to introduce yourself and madeby.studio and what you do and how you help people, that would be great.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks for the intro. So I'm the half co-founder of Made by Studio. We started around, let's say, just about 4 years ago, right at the end of our university degree. So our co-founders, Sam Taylor, we actually met in our final year of university on our graphic design and communication course and decided to kind of nosedive straight into starting a business. And kind of since then, we started like a full service design and development agency. And right now, we've kind of started to decide we're actually just really good at the digital side. So we're really focusing on transforming people's digital performance through websites and web applications that essentially increase the company's bottom line. But we like to focus on companies that will have a very kind of people-centric orientation to kind of their like organization and whatnot. And primarily like the sectors are kind of across industrial, medical health care, like well-being, and a bit in kind of the education area as well.
Brilliant, brilliant. So I think you're only one of, I think about 10 people, funnily enough, that have started a business straight out of college. So you haven't specifically gone into, had a job and then and worked for it, which is fascinating. And I've met some very successful people who've done that. What was there any particular decision that you go straight into business? What prompted that?
Yes, I think for me personally, I when I was back in college, I wanted to always kind of just start a business, and I did a bit of like a side hustle where I built an app. But me being 16, 17 at the time, had no idea actually how to run a business. So we built all this kind of cool, go to university and learn kind of a skill set, which was design, which I really enjoyed, and ended up meeting Sam, and he was like, I want to start a business. I was like, I already have the kind of foundations. So I spent the whole university figuring out what's the infrastructure for a design studio, because that's what I always wanted to do. And we kind of brought that idea where Sam's really good at kind of the sales and the chatting and relationships. I'm good at kind of the operations and the processes, and just kind of went from there. It was a very kind of a risky move to go from very little experience straight into starting a design studio, but it's paid off in the long run, and hopefully it still continues going well.
100%. One of the great things about not working for somebody else is you're not picking up all the things that can hold us back from starting. So I think it's a brilliant thing. And as I say, I think of the nine other people I've met, they're all very successful people, and it's just interesting that because traditionally it is that idea, isn't it? Culturally, education, then a job, and then maybe something in the future. So absolutely brilliant. So when you were growing up, is this the sort of thing you saw yourself doing, or did you have other things in mind?
I think I was kind of brought up to run a business. So my dad, he used to be kind of like town manager in like a few different areas of Manchester, and he
Yeah.
would come home with like the decisions he had to make, like multi-million pound kind of building construction decisions through city councils, and go, okay, Matt, you need to make this decision. What do you do? And me being like kind of just a teenager, I was like, I have no idea. This is overwhelming. It kind of exposed me to kind of critical thinking very early on, because he
Yeah.
did this quite often. And then he was always saying to me, like, the best thing you can do if you want the flexibility and kind of the satisfaction is start a business. So it's kind of just like nailed into my head constantly throughout my whole upbringing. So when I had the opportunity, I was like, well, throughout my whole life, I've been told to do this. I should probably do this. And it's kind of, it did work. I was kind of brought up and raised in that way.
No, that's fascinating, isn't it? Because as I say, probably 80-90% of the population that are brought up to go and work for somebody else, but only a few people have that sort of culture and belief, and that's fascinating, and it's great that you've done it. And as you say, the results speak for themselves, which is wonderful. If you look over the last 4 years, what would you say some of the biggest issues that you've had to overcome as you've grown?
There's a, because we started straight from university with very little experience, it was the whole kind of learning curve of how do you actually do business essentially. We didn't, when we were at university, we got taught how to like design nice things, how to produce kind of really cool solutions. We never got taught kind of how do you do like client management? How do you do outreach marketing? How do you network effectively? And it's all skill sets that we had to kind of figure out and end up kind of getting consultancy and advice to go from there. But in terms of like the biggest challenge is getting our names out there. So when we started off, we were always going into networking events, but because we were just two essentially kind of kids, I'd say, straight out of university, going to these networking events saying, oh, we can build you an amazing website or build you an amazing brand. And then when people said, oh, so have you got any examples? We're like, no, we've only got university projects. Then you can use that as your portfolio piece to show what you can do for someone else, and it kind of spirals on.
Brilliant, brilliant. We froze there, Matt. I'm really sorry. It's could you just repeat the bit about you when they so you said that they would ask you have you got anything, and you had to say no. What did you do then? So we missed that a little bit.
Yes, it was more kind of like we had to try and get people invested and take the risk with us to decide to kind of go, okay, these two people, they might come with fresh ideas. And once that first person did take that risk and that gamble, and it went really well because we put kind of 100% into it because it was our first ever big project, we could use that as our portfolio piece for the next client and then use that as kind of like a spiral to the next one. And then obviously we grow and grow our portfolio and it gets a bit easier from there.
Brilliant, brilliant. So that was, I mean, that's quite a a great thing to be able to give someone that confidence, as you say, for them to be your first client. So wonderful thing to do. But again, the benefit, of as you say, because you're our first client, and we, there's no preconceptions. I think there's always an asset in what could be considered a liability, if that makes any sense. It's just our job to find out what that would be.
Yeah, exactly.
So what looking back over the 4 years, what would you say the biggest, and obviously starting from the position that you were, what would you say are some of the biggest learnings you've had about business?
I'd say more recently is learning how to kind of not do everything yourself. So as like a business owner, when you're starting a business, you tend to do absolutely everything yourself, and you'll kind of have kind of things in everywhere, just trying to manage it all. But as you scale up and we're taking on more full-time staff, it's kind of understanding how do we effectively delegate that work in a manner which is effective for the team members, but also make sure kind of the client's happy and we are maintaining our pipelines. And it's kind of like a juggling act. And essentially we attempted to kind of scale once and then it didn't work because our processes didn't hold up, because we didn't have like the education to design an effective process. So we spent the past 9-10 months redesigning absolutely everything with full transparency of how everything's kind of interconnected. So we can actually see now how kind of a project goes from like the initial conversation to meeting to the whole pipeline to the kind of solution, then to the aftercare as well, which has made it so much easier. But kind of initially, we just didn't have any of these systems or processes, and it made it so difficult to kind of maintain it.
Brilliant, brilliant. And you're probably aware we're a business coaching organisation, and from a coaching perspective, who are the best coaches that you've had, whether that's business, sport, life in general?
I think there's a guy in the city council. He's part of this kind of organisation called Adventure, and he's been with us since the start. So he was our kind of coach advisor, and he's been really good at holding us accountable, but also the workings of the business or like the way we work. We would always approach him, me and Sam, sit down going, here's our idea, here's like the opportunities, here's the threats, and we go like, and we just ask like, Alan, what do you think? And he would always ask the right questions for us. And then by the end of like a 1 hour meeting, we'd have a light bulb moment and be like, okay, this is actually a very simple decision now because we've had that kind of third voice to help us through it and guide us through it.
That's brilliant. For me, and I was having a conversation earlier today that coaching is about drawing out. It's advising might be giving information, but true coaching is drawing out of us what we need to find out, and it's not easy to do. Both drawing out of ourselves and holding accountable is very, very difficult to do without some sort of third party intervention. So that makes perfect sense. And have you picked up, and do you use any sort of favorite quotes or sayings in either good times or challenging times, Matt?
Yeah, so one that I've picked up recently, I'm not sure where it came from, but I remember hearing it. I was like, that really resonates with me. But it's your lowest moments are your biggest opportunities to learn. And we had a period where we essentially kind of the processes weren't holding up and it just wasn't working. And we hit our lowest moment. So we kind of sat down and had a huge self-reflection moment ago, like, and we just thought, what can we learn from this and what can be fixed? And we spent these 9, 10 months fixing everything. And then after that, I was like, oh, there's our lowest moment and was biggest opportunity to learn. And it's been like such a good transition to do. And now it's just stuck with me forever.
Brilliant. I love that. We have a slightly similar one, and I have my own experience of it, which is a breakthrough follows a break up apart or a break up with, and you only break through by breaking something, and therefore at that point we call it perturbation. We're being perturbed, and I remember going back a couple of years with my coach, and was going through that situation, and he just went, and at a low point he went, brilliant, we're about to break through. And all of a sudden it totally turned on its head, that whole concept of this is a great thing, this is a great place to be, not a challenging place.
Yeah, exactly.
That sounds very similar, and wonderful. What a great phrase. And what from a learning perspective, what have you learned about yourself through your journey so far, Matt?
Been a lot, but I think the main ones are kind of well, for me personally, kind of, it's very hard to point to words, but there's more potential than what you think. So essentially, like when we started the business, I was kind of behind the scenes doing kind of processes, operations, and was never kind of client facing or like marketing or kind of public speaking. But now, since last year, I was like, I'm going to switch this over, and all these things which make me uncomfortable, I'm going to try and do, because you need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. So I've now started kind of doing podcasts, doing public speaking. I've got an event in May, which we're in front of about, I think, 250, 500 people on the stage. And if I looked at myself 3 or 4 years ago, like I was like, I'm interested.
I'm really sorry we paused again. So right in the flow of that. So you just say, looking back, you were quite introverted, but now you're moving forward. How has that change happened for you, and how do you feel about it?
Yes, it's that change happened is more kind of, again, it's from this like lowest moment that I mentioned where everything kind of broke down, and I was doing a lot of self-reflection at this period. I just kind of went on a holiday without my laptop, thinking about what can change here, and I realized, like, a kind of reflection on my personality. I was like, if I want to kind of progress and build myself up as a person, I just need to start doing these things. And since doing all that work myself and on the business, like, life is so much easier. It's much easier to like run the business. Personally, it's a lot happier in kind of my work and stuff like that. And like in every single aspect, there's just been a massive positive benefit out of it. Yeah.
That's really cool. There's a Jim Carrey film called The Yes Man, I think it's called. And I love it. And it's sort of, I adopted, fully enough, I hadn't seen the film, but I adopted that attitude myself several years ago. Was, whatever it is, say yes to, and then work out. And it can be a challenging thing to do, but it's also very, it helps us grow.
Yeah, exactly. Like quite often, like the things where you're hesitant and you think it might go wrong, it's usually your mind just telling you kind of think of a worst case scenario. But when you say yes, you realize, oh, actually, it's not that bad, and you end up enjoying it.
Yeah. I think that, the biggest regret is what we haven't done rather than what we have done, isn't it? And it's exactly. It's having that view. There's an interesting clip from it was Will Smith talking about skydiving that was talking about overcoming fears, and how actually the joyous moments are on the other side of fear. That overcoming our fears is often the great place to be. not just the overcoming, but the things that happen. So what, obviously you had we talk about your history and where you've come from and where you are right now. Looking forward, what does the future look like for you guys, and what challenges do you face in the future, if any?
Yeah, so we're actually in a very big transition period where we're kind of come to this end of improving processes in our operational model, and now we're trying to reflect this change of our values and this very people-centric approach to kind of the client-facing side. So more recently as well, we've implemented a 4-day week. We've got flexible working, remote working, kind of all these really good benefits that benefit our team. And now we need to kind of get our new website refreshed that actually says who we work with, our kind of exact niche and kind of skill sets. Because right now it says on our website we do video production, we do photography. We've not done that in years. We just do kind of websites and web applications that transform people's performance essentially now. So it's getting that messaging across for the next few years and just seeing how that goes and measuring the results from that.
Brilliant. Well, look, it'd be great to swing by in 12 months and just see how that's progressed with this significant change in not just change in direction, but change in structure, etc. And how that's gone. And Matt, I'm really interested to ask the question of what would you say to anyone that was thinking of going into business right now?
I think the biggest thing is chat to everyone you can, because if you need help with something, and you're kind of struggling with it, there's usually someone else that's been through that exact same period at some point in time. So if you outreach to kind of people that are a bit further down in their business journey and just ask, have you had this problem and how did you overcome it? There's more likely that they're more than happy to just sit down and have a coffee or a pint with you and just talk through it. And you'll realize that all these issues that you're not the only ones done it. It's pretty much kind of every other business owner have had these same things, and you can learn from that and learn from one another.
Brilliant. And my experience is most people in business want to help others, and therefore being asked for help is one of the it's a great thing to be able to help somebody else. And I think the only thing that holds us back is often our own fear of asking those people, but the more we do, the more help we typically get.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you started again, Matt, is there anything that you do differently, anything significant you do differently, do you think?
Yeah, so not try and do absolutely everything in kind of every respect. So we were trying to, right at the start, we were trying to manage we're doing too many services. We tried to do this full service. We're just spreading ourselves too thin. So I wish we kind of started just with our niche, which was kind of websites and applications and stuff like that. And also learn how to kind of delegate and manage that work in a better way, rather than going this period where we completely kind of screwed up in a simple way and then had to fix it. If we had those processes and systems in place very, very early on, right from the start, it would have prevented that ever happening, and it would have made it a much easier journey. Although then we learned from those moments. It's a bit difficult one because they're necessary to get to this point. Yeah.
It's a bit of a sliding door question, isn't it? If you change anything, you might not be here, and if here is where we like to be, then probably best not to. I guess.
Yeah.
And finally, what advice would you give an 18-year-old you if you're able to go back and do so?
Yeah, we don't be behind the scenes. Actually, kind of be right at the front. Even though I'm an analytical and technical person, there is people that are interested in that. There is still a lot of kind of a story and a journey to talk about with other people. And I think that would have been so beneficial if I started doing it at 18 years old, because I would have built a bigger network of people earlier on. And we would have been a bit further down in our business journey as well if we started doing that a bit earlier.
Brilliant. And it's great advice. Great advice to anybody, really. Is get out there. I'm just wondering if, given there's two founders, is doing this interview part of getting yourself out there yourself as much as you can.
Can you just repeat that, please?
Yeah, sure. No, it just occurred to me that but perhaps given there's two co-founders and you said your business partner is more the outward facing guy, is taking this interview, is that a part of your move to get yourself out there a bit more?
Yeah, exactly. So I set myself some kind of 5 goals that I wanted to achieve this year, and it was like 3 to 5 podcasts, 2 or 3 public speaking opportunities. So I've got kind of 2 of the public speaking, 3 of the podcasts this year already, and it's only 3 months in. And I realized, oh, I'm actually not that bad at it. I really enjoy it, so I'm just going to do more and more and more, because it's just a lot of fun, and you learn about yourself, and it's really enjoyable just chatting about business to other people as well.
Brilliant. Definitely, it's definitely a big part of what I do. I love to talk to people about business and what they're doing. Well, Matt, thank you so much for your time. It's been really fascinating. As I say, I think I said before we started, I love doing this because just how many different businesses and different business people doing things in different ways has been wonderful, and really wish you the best for the future. And as I say, it'd be great to swing by in the next 6 to 12 months and just see how those changes have embedded and how what differences that might make.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for having me as well.
Thank you.